r/AskReddit Redditors who have decided they don't want to have children. What is your reasoning? Serious. I had to raise my brothers. I got the free trial and want none of that crap. Yep, same here. Raised my 2 younger sisters and my parents just can't understand why I'm not giving them grandchildren. Yeah, been there, done that. No thank you. Yep. I've had my younger brother since he was 13. I turned 30 this year and he's turning 18 soon, and I absolutely do not have the patience or energy to do this again. Plus, this way my boyfriend and I can make sure to still be as available for him as possible if he needs anything as he learns his way through life, and I'm sure he will. I've helped my mum look after my little brother who's 6 years younger and on the severe end of the autism spectrum. Although it can be annoying, I wouldn't be against having kids when I'm in my 30s because I've handled looking after a non-verbal kid fine, so assuming I have money to support kids I'd be fine. It is my belief that if you are going to have kids you should love them unconditionally no matter what. I have conditions. Yes, the biggest thing that makes me question wanting kids was that I really don't think I could handle being a parent to a child with disabilities. I know I would regret having children if that was the case, and I feel like such a horrible person for thinking that way. Good on you for recognizing that. Most people don't, or lie to themselves that they don't. They push their conditions on their children under the guise of parenting and knowing what's best/wisdom, and give their children lifelong psychological and emotional issue source, and that child. If you can berate your child's interest/self-expression/decisions, and in the same breath, tell them that you love them unconditionally, be prepared to either pay a lot in therapy bills, have a strained/non-existent relationship with your child, or have a dead child. Simply put, kids annoy me, and I probably wouldn't make a good father. Same here. Worked at multiple summer camps and children's places, did it for experience and thought it would be fun. Kids honestly hate me, and I'm fine with it. So many parents are uneducated, shitty individuals with no morals, who don't discipline their kids, and can't afford a Twinkie yet think they are the exception to the rule. I feel like saying, no, you shouldn't have been a parent and you're an idiot for thinking otherwise. I hate when people tell me I'd be a great parent. Like, how would you know? The only thing worse off than you is your kids, but of course I can't say that. I like sleep, a clean house, and not having to be responsible for someone else's emotions. I can barely handle my own emotions. What would I do with a young child that needs, well, whatever a young child needs? I can barely handle my own fucking health. What would I do with a small spawn that needs 3x the crap I give myself? Every time I hear about how new parents getting literally like 3 hours or less of sleep for at least a year, my chest clenches. No reasoning involved. I knew I didn't want kids when I was 6, and 45 years later I haven't changed my mind. There are several logical reasons I'd be a terrible parent, but bottom line, I'm not wired to find any aspect of parenting attractive or desirable. 45 years later I haven't changed my mind. Do people still tell you that you will change your mind? I'm curious because I've said, since I was 12, that I don't want kids. I'm nearly 30 now, and people still tell me I will change my mind. I don't want them. You'd think this reason would be enough. Point being pregnant doesn't sound like a good time. I'm going to be 30 this year, and have yet to experience being stable with my finances. I want to do fun things for me when I'm financially able to, not skip over me and go straight to kids. I have a nephew, and I love him so much. Plus I get to leave him after a few hours. As my stepmother and I always say, kiss them once when they arrive, and twice when they leave. Pregnancy grosses me out to the extreme. I actually love babies, but the whole process is so unsettling and icky to think about for me. Hate how everyone forces the idea it should be beautiful and magical. It's a draining and traumatic process and women die from it even in the modern world. Yes. I feel exactly the same way. And I'm also turning 30 this year, and I'm just about to feel stable, like financially stable enough to be responsible for a dog. Maybe. I have a lot of supporting reasons, but the main overriding one is that I just don't want them. I think children should be wanted, not just a thing you do, because that's what you do. Point for supporting reasons. I also am actively worried about the effects of overpopulation. Don't think I'm the type of person, or in the right situation, to be a good parent, and don't really enjoy other people's children. I intentionally stopped answering this question a long time ago. Nobody ever asks people who do want children what is their reasoning. I could give you any number of reasons ranging from my childhood wasn't that happy to I just don't see my life panning out that way, but when you get right down to it, I just don't want to, and I don't understand people who do. Don't get me wrong. If you really want kids then great, but I'm 28 so have plenty of couples around me having kids, and out of all of them, I'd say one couple really loves kids and has a stable environment to raise them in, yet I need to justify why I'm not doing that. The real answer is it's none of your business to the people who want to pry or truly don't understand. No reason will be good enough. Plus, no reason is good enough to satisfy anyone. The response 99.99% of the time, no matter what you say is you're young, you'll change your mind. Great Karen, since you know everything, why the F are you asking? Agreed. Why do people have kids? Cannot relate. Totally weird. This is the best answer. If anyone should have to justify their decisions, it's the breeders. I don't want to is an entirely sufficient reason. I wanna enjoy my life and be free. Have my money for myself, and buy whatever I want. There are enough people on earth who want children. If everyone would have some we would just overpopulate. However, I wouldn't say no to a partner. A girlfriend that accepts me the way I am, and accepts my hobbies. I like my money and my sanity. Also, sleep. Expensive big commitment, restraining, extra anxiety, and why not have a dog or something? Good summary. I feel the same. I was going to comment exactly these points, so I'll just upvote you instead of repeating this. I don't think this fucked up world needs more people. I don't like children. I don't see myself as a parent, and don't think I'd be good at it. I don't want to give up stuff like traveling and to be responsible for another human who depends on me. BTW. I'm W/25. I hate hearing you'll find the right man to have children with. No I won't. I never wanted kids and I never will. Eat. Thank you for the award and votes. I would have never thought my first ever comment with that many votes would be about not wanting children. I wish my husband would have been okay with placing the baby for adoption. It was too late for an abortion when I found out. I've always had extremely irregular periods. I've gone 6 months without one sometimes. Contraception failed and I realized I was showing pregnancy symptoms. I was pregnant. The birth was traumatic. I hate my life. I'd probably kill myself if it wasn't for my antidepressants. I never wanted kids. Feel free to use me as an example whenever anyone says you'll change your mind. You won't. I love my husband. I love our daughter. But I go to sleep every night wishing I could go back in time and change something, like be abstinent until I turned 21, so I could get the tubal ligation. I was a few months away from turning 21 when I found out I was pregnant. I was planning the sterilization. My husband was supportive. I was on birth control. We both had jobs and goals, and now life just seems so bleak. I hate it. Besides killing myself, I often fantasize about packing up a few things and leaving and starting a new life. But that would be terrible. I'm bound by guilt and obligation, and although I love my husband and daughter, I have never been so unhappy. 40 and still feel that way. We know what we want. Point also #2 is so valid, yet gets judged so consistently. I don't understand why, if we have the insight to realize these small beings aren't our jam, people would try to force us to make decisions to the contrary. Why force an undesirable outcome on anyone? I think it has more to do with validating the choices of those exerting pressure on us than anything else. I've got bad news. I'm 33 and my partner is 40, and people still tell us that we just haven't changed our minds yet. I've taken to being very direct and abrasive when people say this crap to me. Same. Not even big things like travel the world. I just don't want to give up things like sitting around and doing nothing. You'll find the right man to have children with, then, by definition, he's not the right man. I swear to Christ, I was in grade school when I first knew I didn't want kids. I'm going to be 29 this year and I feel the same way. People have tried to tell me I will change my mind. I found someone I love and considered having children very briefly, but ultimately I don't think it's for me. Pregnancy and labor sound terrible, so many things can go wrong. And I don't think I'll be in the financial position to support a kid anytime soon. Given that I'm almost 30, my time is running out anyway. I'm pretty sure I'll be in a nursing home still being told, you'll change your mind. I was gonna reply to the thread, but you hit them all on the head. My art teacher is in his 50s and is married to a woman he loves, but has never wanted children lol. Too many emotional problems, bad genetics for mental health problems, can't bear to bring an innocent child into such a horrible world. Point generally struggle with kids because I'm not good with messes, noise, or patience. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate kids, I'm just not good with them and find it extremely draining. Point don't want to be stuck giving my all to the kids for 20 of the best years of my life. Point asexual. Point I don't want to, and that's nobody else's business but mine. I'm surprised asexual isn't higher on the list. I don't see a reason to. Point I feel like this question is in the wrong direction. If you want to force another being into existence, you should have a good justification for doing so. Point I think the usual next response is, well, the human race has to continue, and it just becomes a lot of value judgments and posturing. Which is fine, nothing really matters anyway. And yet, if you ask people why they think the world needs our offspring, they get all offended. Exactly. Having kids should really be an opt-in rather than an opt-out. I don't like children. Point people with kids are like, oh, I didn't either, but when they're yours it's all sunshine and unicorn farts. But the same ones have dark circles under their eyes, hang out about once a year, and bring the screaming little assholes with them, and constantly moan about how expensive children are. Point I like having a full night's sleep, my own schedule, and control over my own finances. Thank you. I hear my friends say the same things. I also hear my friends yelling at their kids all the time because they annoy them when they watch TV, play games, read books, try to sleep, try to eat dinner, try to go out, to me, it's almost like they are in a MLM scheme. They put on a brave face saying they enjoy it, but I see the hopelessness in their eyes, and most of my friends only have kids in elementary school. They haven't dealt with middle or high school kids yet. And they say things like, oh just wait, it's coming for you too, to other people. As if being a parent is this painful thing they have to do and will inevitably get sucked into. As someone who got pregnant unplanned, despite protection, and is a single mum of a 7-year-old now, I also feel that many parents aren't as happy as they claim to be, but saying you regret parenthood is simply not socially accepted. Admit that in front of the wrong people and you're basically a monster. My son is a pretty non-problematic and sweet kid, and yes, I love him very much. I think that's what people mean when they say, if it's your own it'll be great. But just because I love him doesn't mean it's not expensive, exhausting, annoying, and it also doesn't make me a good mother or a happy person. It doesn't make anything great just because I have a kid I love. And while I'd never give away my son, now that I know and love him, I still often wish I had decided for the abortion when I didn't know him yet. I try my very best to be a good mother to him and show him that he is loved, but honestly, I'm not really made for motherhood and I often feel very guilty and sorry for him about that. Childbirth sounds awful and I don't want to put myself through that. And I would feel personally responsible if my child inherited my mental illness. Same. I deal with mental illness, and although I have it under control, I can't guarantee it will always be like that. I have the same illness as my dad, and although his is more severe, I don't want to put another kid through all that. I find children overwhelming with their constant need for attention and supervision. Children are expensive to raise properly, and I would prefer to spend the money on a nice house, travel and being able to retire early. I want to be able easily travel outside of school breaks. I have a medical condition that is potentially heritable that is extremely painful and do not wish for a child to suffer with it. My grandfather also had it. Also, my family has a history of early onset of the condition in childhood when usually it happened to people in their 20s to 40s. A comment I saw on Reddit summed it up perfectly for me as to why I don't want children. The moment you have a kid, your life is no longer your life. Like many others, I cannot see myself as a parent, nor do I think I have what it takes to be a parent. Plus, I don't think I'm responsible enough to be able to take care of another person, let alone a child. 25F. I should start by saying I like kids, in general. I love nannying, working with kids, and learning from them. Young people are seriously undervalued. But it sounds like a nightmare to be a parent. In a superficial way, it destroys the body in a way so it never goes back. The process is utterly painful, and 1/3 women describe birth as traumatic. Your skin stretches, your hips permanently widen, and your lady parts go through hell. Most women gain 25 to 40 pounds. Oh, and bye good boobs. Breastfeeding ruins those babies, and is extremely painful and emotionally draining. It would take a lot of money, pain, and surgery to go back to some semblance of what you used to look like. So many women are treated like crap by their doctors and the priority is all on the baby. Women are often stuck home alone for months to care for an extremely needy new human. Lots of help in the first few weeks, but that quickly fades and your friends disappear. No drinking, smoking, or other substances that could harm the baby for about a year or more if you breastfeed. There is a really good chance I would get postpartum depression. Risking my mental health alone is not worth it. More practically, in the US, women are penalized for having children in the workplace. On average, a woman's lifetime earnings go down 10% per child. I have worked very hard to obtain a JD, and I'm not going to throw it all away before I have the time even pay off my loans. Women are often expected to do the majority or parenting. I cannot have a career and be expected to drop everything to go pick up a sick kid at school. Trials do not get rescheduled for things like that. I would not have time to be a good parent and attend all the games and dance recitals and etc. I would need a nanny to do that for me, and I really think that is unfair to a child to have someone be a proxy parent. I've seen how those kids turn out. Lastly, a lot of women regret it. As bad as it sounds, all the downsides are not worth the effort. Kids are hard. They are irrational a lot of the time. And that's assuming you are lucky enough to have a healthy child. I know the best choice for me, and any child I have, is to just not do it at all. No drinking, smoking, or other substances that could harm the baby for about a year or more. If you breastfeed, don't forget the during pregnancy and potentially while trying, if you want to be 100% clean. I really like how broad your answer is. Down to earth and informed. I worked very hard to obtain aged for a second. I thought you meant a bottle of bourbon, and I sympathized. Then, I realized, and sympathized some more, as a law student, rather than a borderline alcoholic this time, if there is such a difference. I cannot guarantee their happiness and health. It is incredibly selfish to have them, and know they will suffer. I don't want to give my life to another person. It would destroy me mentally and physically. Climate change. I agree with all of these. A kid would test me too much, and it'd be afraid of what angry and unreasonable me would do. And seriously, if our older generations can't give a crap, then I'll love to show them the grandchildren they will not have, because we aren't ignorant. Climate change, the elephant in the room. People have a lot of great ideas to solve climate change, but don't want to state the biggest reason: overpopulation. Granted, I'm only 16, but the main reason I don't want kids in the future is because I don't want to go through the process of pregnancy/giving birth. I'm 27 and I still wish I didn't have the capability to put my life in so much danger as carrying and birthing. Pregnancy and pregnant bellas freak me right out. Don't demean yourself. Even if you're young, your plans, wants, and needs are important and shouldn't be discarded because of your age. I'm 26 and I feel the same. This is also how I felt as a teenager. At the time I assumed I'd probably adopt, because it hadn't really occurred to me you could just choose not to have kids. By the time I was 18, 19, I had realized even if I adopted, or even if my so was the one to carry it and not me, since I'm bi and could end up with another woman, I still just didn't want to be a parent. Full stop. I'm in my 30s now, and married, and my so has a vasectomy, because he too does not want to be a parent. The point of my comment is just solidarity. I agree with you, and it's interesting seeing your opinion at 16 being similar to mine at 16. I heard your clitoris can get ripped in half. Now I don't have one, but I can't imagine that to be pleasant. You know what's super nice about not having kids? My so and I can just pick up ABD leave at the drop of a hat without having to worry about a babysitter or school, or whatever the hell else. Kids smell weird and make things sticky. Also they are loud. Also, for the first 2-3 years they don't really do much besides scream, shit, and puke. And then, unless you're a total piece of shit, you're on the hook for at least 17 to 18 years. Fuck that. Kids smell weird and make things sticky. My dad once said, toddlers are magical. You can bathe them, dress them in fresh clothes, set them in an empty room, and 10 minutes later everything is sticky and full of crumbs. What really annoys me about babies and toddlers is the drooling and the snot. My friends' kids will take a piece of bread and chew on it for half an hour, spreading soggy bread mush everywhere. Run around with a runny nose. Everything in your house should be washable, and somehow there's still snot in the carpet. There are a ton of logic-driven reasons not to have kids: money, stress, or the usual, but the real reason is that I just don't want them. Whatever thing there is inside of people that makes them sure they want to be parents, that makes them look forward to having kids, and excited for the family they will raise, I don't have it. And while I think a lot of the logic-based things can be lived with for someone who genuinely wants to be a parent, I think I would ruin my life, and probably my kids, if I went into it with absolutely zero innate desire to have a child. I want to be a dink. Dual income, no kids. That's my husband and I, although in this economy, a lot of us will become moinks lol. Never heard this term before, but I love it. Have you ever seen when a baby kicks and the mom's belly moves? That shit's terrifying. I would scream if I saw that on someone else, let alone being the one feeling it. I hate small children and pregnancy sound heinous. I'm currently 9 months pregnant, and it's the weirdest thing I've ever done. Every week brings a new weird symptom. Ever heard of lightening crotch? The kicks are good, because it's reassurance that he hasn't strangled himself with his umbilical cord, but I still think the kicks are weird, not to mention uncomfortable or even painful sometimes, and not necessarily the beautiful bonding experience other mothers go on about. I don't think it's fair that I have to put everything that I worked for on hold to care for a baby, and when I tell people that I don't want kids and they'll be fine, they tell me, but who will take care of you when you're old? A nurse? I have a lot of genes that I don't want to pass on, from mental health problems, a genetic propensity for addiction, to a lot of physical health problems. I don't want to saddle some poor kid with all the same issues I have, others they may get, that I don't have, and then say, have fun with that. Point the world is already heading toward overpopulation by humans to begin with. The 1 or 2 kids I might have, if I chose to have kids, isn't a whole lot now. But how many kids would they have? And how many kids would those kids have? I'd rather not contribute to the overpopulation issue. I'm a very private person when it comes to my body, and the thought of sharing it with another human and then giving birth to that human in a room with a bunch of people staring and poking and prodding while I'm half naked is terrifying. I have a long family history of pregnancy issues. My mother had to go to the hospital twice a week to get treatment so that she wasn't dehydrated and starving because of how much she was throwing up during her entire pregnancy with me. And this kind of thing goes back several generations that we know of. I don't particularly like babies or toddlers. I don't know why other people think they're so cute when they can't do anything for themselves, and they're always so messy. With babies, you have to change diapers, which is disgusting. And then with toddlers, you have to toilet train and clean up beds when they pee them, which is equally disgusting. It was always pretty self-evident to me. It's not like I ever thought hard about it. It's like deciding that I don't want a kangaroo. I just never really seriously even considered the idea of reproducing and becoming legally bound to a minor in a parental situation. And if I think about it, then I'm just not seeing the advantages or why. I'm honestly not sure if I don't want children yet, as I'm still like 20. However, some of the reasons I have put in my cons list for having children are, they're expensive as fuck, the world is gonna have too many children in it already by the time I'm ready. I have my own issues to resolve before dedicating my time to a child's. This is gonna sound extremely superficial, so bear with me. As a woman who is more fit compared to the average woman, getting pregnant would, in a sense, distort my body, stretch marks, etc. Pregnancy and delivery is beautiful, and I'm amazed by my fellow ladies who do it, but personally, it's not for me. I'm a dude in my mid-30s that runs daily. I wake up around 4:30 am to do it. I love it, and never want to stop. Having kids would ruin that and my fitness. No thanks. It's not superficial at all. That's a huge change to your body, and you shouldn't go through it if you don't want to. As a woman who is more fit compared to the average woman, getting pregnant would, in a sense, distort my body. Same here. I was blessed with a naturally athletic build. There's no way in hell I'm gonna change it, especially when I don't like kids. Yo, I've had an eating disorder since I was 12/13. And the idea of my body changing without my input terrifies me. If I were to be pregnant, I would be devastated. Not saying that my experience is normal, but you're not alone. Not superficial at all. I have an 8-month-old, and while I never got stretch marks, my body is still different after. I'm back to pre-baby weight, but my body is just different. Before pregnancy I was very fit, and when I started to gain weight, I cried. When I could no longer work out, I cried. We were one and done before we had him, but after all that I went through, I couldn't imagine doing it again. I think it can be kind of selfish. Don't get me wrong, I know that a lot of parents want children for good and honest reasons, but I feel like a lot of them want to make a beautiful baby and project all of their views and beliefs on it, because they think that their views and beliefs are the best. Some parents want a baby simply for something to occupy them. The adoption system is overflowing with children, but people refuse to adopt. Why? So their babies look like them? So their babies have the same blood as them? It doesn't make sense to me. I just don't like babies. They're loud, gross and annoying. They don't have any teeth, dude. It's gross. I've never wanted them, and get told all the time I'd make a great father, but that's hardly a reason to have them. My wife and I are 100% on the same page, and it's simple. Far too expensive in both money and time. We love to travel. We love having sex whenever we like. We love sleeping in all the time. We love gaming, going out, staying in, laying in, and basically doing whatever we want, whenever we want. And lastly, for me, I love putting all of my focus on my wife and showing her each and every day how I feel. Would not trade it for anything, and never even consider changing my mind. I never found kids cute, never felt maternal needs. I've been sure that I wanted to be childless for as long as I can remember. I don't want to be pregnant, I don't want to give birth, and I don't want to raise another human until I die. I don't like kids, and have no interest of having some for the sake of having them. Humanity doesn't require me to have kids to survive as a species. There are way too much humans already, and with families of like 10 kids you have to balance it somehow. If I could get rid of my uterus I gladly would, but sadly doctors don't want me to do it, because I'm too young. Blah blah blah. I sucked as a kid. Why would I want to go through the hell I put my parents through? I'd much rather enjoy my life, develop myself further as a person, travel to exciting places with my incredible girlfriend, and one day wife, and do whatever the hell we want. I really dislike babies and toddlers. I've worked with kids for 7 years, and even when they're cute or funny or sweet I run out of patience after half an hour or so. Older kids are more tolerable, but it frustrates me when I watch teens or older children making stupid mistakes. I get irrationally annoyed at the situation. I'd be a terrible parent. A fun aunt maybe, but I shouldn't have to put up with people I can't tolerate for 18+ years, and no child should have to feel unwanted by their own parent. Why would you want kids? That is the question I find myself asking anytime I'm around kids. They are just kind of the worst. I also absolutely hate the idea of having that level of responsibility for another person. Fortunately, my wife also has no interest in having kids. I'm a really calm and patient person, but if I heard one scream at night, or even day, I'd beat the hell out of the kid, or throw it out of the window. It's not that I don't like kids, they simply annoy me. I don't want to spread weak genes any further. Kids disgust me. Most of them are dirty. I'm not sure if I would be able to love the kid. I don't want the kid to suffer due to lack of love, or force myself to pretend to love it for rest of my life. I can't imagine to sacrifice my whole life for the kid. I already raised my oldest sister's kids from toddlers to 17, when I was nothing more than a kid myself. During that time I was working, raising, and buying everything for them: food, diapers, clothes, school supplies, etc. During those years I decided I did not want to do that crap again. Don't get me wrong, I love my nieces and nephews, but I don't want kids of my own. I wanna be able to travel, or do something whenever I want. Plus I can't have kids of my own anyways due to a medical condition. I'm 16 now, but one of my main reasons is because I grew up in a single parent home. My dad impregnated my mom and just left. They weren't serious, so my mom didn't hurt emotionally. We live in poverty now, but it was way worse when I was smaller, 0 to 13. My mom couldn't leave me home alone, age and her own mental health, so the jobs she took up were near minimum wage and few hours. My mom felt more comfortable to leave me home alone around 13, and we've just began to stabilize. I'm 100% sure if my dad was just with us, we would be in a much stable place. I'm afraid if I get pregnant, I'll be left to rot and let the damn cycle start all over again. I never get to see my dad much, but I feel like this is the biggest, most important lesson he ever taught me. I think to have children, I should have the feeling that I want to have them. Not having this craving is enough of a reason not to have kids, is it not? I view children like I view really religious people. I like them, they're fun to be around for a while, but I don't want them living in my house, asking me a bunch of questions, telling me weird stories, yelling at me, and touching all my stuff. Where do I start? I'm terrified of being pregnant and the pain of childbirth. If I'm not willing to feel the pain of childbirth for my kid, then that means I won't love my kid unconditionally, and no child should be subjected to that point. I don't like kids, and I have the maternal instinct of an arachnid. I'm generally a pretty cold, non-physically affectionate person, and again, no kid should be subjected to that point. There's lots of cancer in my family. I'm pretty sure I'm going to die of cancer someday, and I can't bring myself to pass those genes onto a child. Kids are going to bring you lots of pain and heartache. They're going to make lots of bad decisions down the road, some worse than others, and I'm going to find it impossible to not blame myself. I've struggled with mental illness and self-harm, and I could not live with myself if I passed it on to someone else. It's something I would absolutely not wish on anyone. I wouldn't know what to do if my kid started self-harming, because I wouldn't have good words of encouragement to give. It does not get easier. Recovery is not an eat straight road. That being said, I consider that I will be in recovery all my life, and working on keeping myself healthy is a full-time job. I would not be able to give a child the time and energy it deserves. I'm passionate about the environment, and not having kids is another way to help it. My dad left me, and I don't want any kid to feel what I felt about if I died or ended up walking out for some reason. I have a condition called misophonia, which makes ordinary sounds agonizingly painful to me. Kids don't have a tendency to be quiet. I also worry, because it's hereditary, that I'd pass it on to them. Moreover, with other issues, pregnancy would be physically difficult. In this world in its current state, I wouldn't want to bring kids into it. First of all, I think that reproducing just because you want to make a little half copy of yourself is selfish. Hundreds of thousands of kids are in the foster system in the United States alone. If you don't want to care for a kid at all, that's fine, but to make your own just because you want to? Why? Second of all, my brain is a ref mess, so not only can I not physically handle being around children for an extended amount of time, but I'd pass down my own shitty genes if I made one myself, and that's just mean to have kids when you know that you have hereditary disorders. That goes for any hereditary condition that is life-threatening or damages/destroys quality of life. It's selfish. I also have nightmares about being pregnant. Seeing pregnant people makes me almost sick, and I can't look at their stomach. I do not like it. I'll probably get downvoted a crap ton because people have that drive to reproduce that I don't have. It feels irresponsible to bring a new human life into the world in its current state. There are so many children out there that don't have homes. If I were to have children, I would adopt anyway. I also have several genetic risk factors for autoimmune disease and mental health problems in my family that I don't want to pass to biological children. I was a full-time nanny for several years raising other people's children. Before that, an early childhood teacher. I've had my fill. I prefer not to sacrifice my body, sleep, time, and finances for children. I'd rather spend those things on other activities, including making a difference in the lives of many more children than I could raise on my own. I think that children deserve to be wanted more than anything in the world, treasured beyond everything else, and never made to feel like they "ruined their parents' life." I love children, but I don't have that longing for them. They deserve better than that. For some reason, the idea of having a biological copy of myself that shares some of my characteristics grosses me out in a way I can't describe. I don't hate myself, and I definitely don't hate other children or babies. However, I'm gay, so perhaps that may have something to do with it. I can't understand the natural urge to reproduce that everyone talks about. I'm barely able to take care of myself, let alone another human being.